Chosen one. Have you been feeling it too? That unshakable sense that you're being watched, not by man, but by heaven. That quiet stirring in your spirit, like something sacred is drawing closer. Have you noticed how the noise of this world has started to lose its grip on your heart? How time feels like it's folding in strange ways? How places that once fit now feel foreign? These aren't just feelings, they're signals. You didn't find this message found you. Written across timelines, it arrives right on schedule for your spirit. And here's the question heaven's been waiting for you to ask. What if you're not going to die the way others do? What if, like Enoch, you were never meant to finish like the rest? What if your exit from this world won't be through death, but through divine retrieval? This is not just a video, it's a prophetic unveiling, a spiritual briefing for those who have been walking so closely with God that the veil between realms is starting to thin. You felt invisible to people, but deeply known by heaven. You've walked faithfully in silence while the world overlooked you. You've been misjudged, misunderstood, misnamed, but still you walked on. Why? Because your path is not about applause, it's about assignment. You're being prepared not to collapse, but to ascend. And before we go deeper, I want to pause and say thank you. Truly, thank you to every one of you who's been supporting this divine assignment. Whether through your words, your presence, your prayers, or your super thanks, your faithfulness matters. Even if no one on earth sees what you've sown, heaven does. And I see you. I honor you. You are part of this movement. Now, if your spirit bears witness to what you're reading, if something inside you just whispered, "This is me," type 777 in the comments right now. That number isn't random. It's a declaration, a signal, a code. It says, I am walking with God. I am walking like Enoch. I am not living for survival. I am ready for the shift. I am on divine assignment until the moment heaven calls me home. So let's be clear. This isn't just an encouraging word. This is divine strategy. This is your spiritual blueprint for the days to come. Watch it again when your spirit feels shaken. Share it with the ones you know have also been hidden, marked, and called, because what's about to be revealed will shift the way you understand your purpose and your exit. You won't die the way they expect. You won't leave the way the world predicts. Like Enoch, when the time is right and the assignment is fulfilled, you'll be taken. Let's begin. God's chosen ones. Like Enoch, you won't die, you'll be taken. You were never called to blend in. You were chosen to walk beyond the timeline, not just to escape mediocrity, but to transcend the constructs that others believe are fixed. You were not designed to simply survive the patterns of this world. You were built to shift atmospheres and interrupt time-bound narratives with the pulse of eternity. The world calls it obscurity, but heaven calls it resonance. You are not just another name in a crowd. You are a divine appointment wrapped in skin, walking a path whose coordinates were drawn before you took your first breath. Enoch's story may only occupy a few verses in Genesis, but the frequency of his life still echoes in the spirit realm today. While others in his lineage lived for centuries, Methuselah, Jared, Lamech, their records read like biological footnotes, generations marked by time, length, and ancestry, but rarely by intimacy. But Enoch's biography was brief in word, but boundless in weight. His legacy defied measurement because it wasn't written in years, but in intimacy. The word says, Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him. Genesis 5:24. That one sentence holds more authority than 1,000 accolades. It carries the thunder of eternal weight. He didn't build kingdoms, amass armies, or leave behind dynasties. He left something more eternal: resonance. His entire life became a signal heaven could not ignore. He didn't need to impress people when he had already moved God. Have you ever wondered why God didn't wait for Enoch to grow older, richer, or more publicly impactful before taking him? Why was his life marked by ascension, not accumulation? Why his name was sealed in eternal memory, not because of what he achieved, but because of how deeply he aligned? Why his record wasn't written in accomplishment, but in presence? You see, in the divine architecture of purpose, time is not the main structure. Intimacy is. Heaven does not measure as men do. The calendar cannot weigh what only covenant reveals. Heaven measures by spiritual frequency, not human achievement. Enoch didn't just live, he vibrated at the frequency of God's breath. His steps weren't random, they were calibrated like the rotation of stars, governed by unseen mathematical harmony. His walk wasn't reactionary, it was resonant. And when a life begins to echo heaven more than earth, something inevitable happens. The earth must let go. You've likely been told that legacy is built by doing more, grinding harder, lasting longer. But what if the most potent legacies were born not in performance, but in proximity? What if we've been climbing ladders God never asked us to build? God has always inverted the blueprint. He doesn't require quantity, he desires quality. Quality of faith, of obedience, of surrender. What if your hidden prayers and private sacrifices are more significant than public stages? What if your quiet yes holds more cosmic weight than another's thunderous performance? What if the things you thought disqualified you, your tears in secret, your unseen sacrifices, your soft refusals, were actually your promotion papers being signed in heaven? Enoch's life was so attuned that earth could no longer hold him. It wasn't death, it was divine transfer. It wasn't escape, it was completion. The resonance of his obedience had reached such frequency that gravity could no longer bind him. His walk became a ladder, his breath became agreement, and heaven said, "Now." Pope Gregory the Great once wrote, "To desire nothing outside of God is already to dwell in heaven." That was Enoch. He didn't die to be in heaven, he walked himself into it. And that is the call over your life. You were never meant to measure yourself by earthly time. Your design is heavenly, and your measurements are eternal. You weren't born for countdowns, you were born for convergence. You carry a spiritual algorithm in your bones, one calibrated not to clocks, but to covenants. But can I ask you, what if your current obscurity is the disguise for a divine acceleration? What if your hidden obedience is rewriting timelines in the spirit? What if every unseen surrender is constructing a ladder of light that heaven will one day use to pull you higher? What if the silence you're in now is not the absence of impact, but the womb of your next realm? Take Maya, a woman who spent her entire life behind hospital curtains, not as a patient, but as a janitor. She prayed in every room she cleaned. She never made headlines. She never stood behind a pulpit. But when she passed, several doctors testified they felt peace only when she'd been in the room. They didn't know it, but her walk was shifting atmospheres. Her intercession was shifting blood pressure. Her presence was changing prognosis. Her promotion didn't come with applause. It came with angelic applause. The records on earth missed her, but heaven celebrated her like royalty. That's what resonance looks like. In contrast, take Charles Ponzi, yes, the man whose name now defines a system of deception, a charismatic financier in the early 1900s. Ponzi promised impossible returns and fooled thousands. He walked not with God, but with greed. His rise was fast, but his fall was ruinous. Convicted, imprisoned, forgotten. His life was long enough to build a name, but too shallow to carry eternal weight. Fame was his fortress, but character was absent from his foundation, and so everything crumbled. You, chosen one, were never meant to impress crowds. You were meant to echo the cadence of heaven. You are not on stage to be seen. You are in sync to be significant. And when you do, you'll begin to feel the laws of spiritual gravity shifting. Have you noticed the disconnections lately? The pull to silence, the strange desire to walk alone, the craving for less noise and more stillness. It's not isolation, it's insulation. You're not breaking down, you're being built different. God is preparing to carry you where distraction cannot follow. Have you seen the snow leopard? It walks alone through the Himalayas, almost invisible, yet unmatched in precision. Its paws make no sound, but its impact is seismic to the ecosystem. It moves silently, but its absence disrupts balance. Like you, it's not loud, but it's marked. Not flashy, but it's feared by predators. It's a creature of mystery, not mythology. You were never supposed to roar to be respected. You were created to move with mystery. Heaven designed your walk to be low profile, but high impact. Enoch's taking is not a fairy tale. It is a prophecy encoded in your own spiritual DNA. You carry an internal clock set to divine alignment, not earthly expiration. You are not bound by metrics. You are moving by mission. There will be a moment, perhaps not announced, perhaps not even understood by those around you, where heaven declares, "This one is ready." And the realm you thought was your ceiling will split open, and what once held you will release you, not out of death, but out of delight. It will not feel like an ending. It will feel like recognition. Can the world explain it? Number, but can the spirit recognize it? Absolutely. Spirit calls to spirit. Deep calls to deep. And what heaven has marked, no man can deny. There's no algorithm for obedience, no trend chart for presence. But when God sees that walk, he responds. So don't despise the obscurity. Don't delay your walk, waiting for validation. Don't edit your surrender to fit their expectations. Your yes is building an invisible staircase, one that angels can descend and ascend on. Your surrender is tuning your spirit to a wavelength higher than logic, a frequency clearer than applause. Every time you chose integrity over influence, you took another step. Every time you chose consecration over convenience, you rose again. You are not stalling, you are ascending. And one day, like Enoch, it will happen, a shift, a silence, a supernatural transition, not staged, not scheduled, just sacred. You won't die, you'll be taken, not because you lost, but because you finished. And it will not be punishment, it will be proof that heaven remembers those who walk faithfully. Your walk has not been a waste, it has been a countdown. So walk on, chosen one. Walk with courage, walk with clarity, walk without needing applause. Because you're not just walking toward destiny, you are walking it into being. The closer you walk with the divine, the more you begin to realize you were never made to stay. You were not designed for spiritual stagnation or earthly permanence. Your existence has always been tethered to another realm. And the further you go in your walk, the more evident it becomes that your truest home isn't here, it's there. You're not just passing through time, you're growing through realms. The landscape of your soul is shifting, stretching beyond the limitations of culture, noise, and flesh. This is what Enoch's story reveals. His departure wasn't an interruption. It wasn't a glitch in the narrative or a tragic anomaly. It was a continuation, a seamless extension of a faithful walk that transcended dimensions. He didn't vanish, he ascended. The Genesis record whispers, Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him. Genesis 5:24. But that taking wasn't random. It was relational. It wasn't the result of religious performance or public spectacle. It was the result of prolonged intimacy. Enoch didn't merely step out of life, he stepped into where he had always belonged. The border between heaven and earth blurred, not because Enoch forced it, but because his consistency with God eroded the barrier over time, like a shoreline quietly giving way to an ever-rising tide of glory. Have you ever wondered why the deeper your faith grows, the more detached you feel from the noise of the world? Why the lights dim in places that once fascinated you, and the applause that used to stir you now feels hollow? That quiet ache within your spirit, that gentle pull towards stillness while everything around you screams for performance. It's not fatigue, it's not apathy, it's not regression, it's frequency shift. You've begun to tune out the static of this world because you're picking up the higher resonance of eternity. You're no longer living by reactions, you're moving by revelation. Not everyone can hear it, but you can, because when heaven begins to pull, even the familiar begins to lose its grip. The more Enoch walked with God, the less gravity the world had on him, and this is precisely what's happening to you. Your soul is shedding its old weights. You're no longer nourished by applause. You're no longer satisfied by surface. The rooms that once impressed you now seem small. Conversations that once thrilled you now leave you hollow. Opportunities that once excited you now feel misaligned. Is it sadness? Number, it's sacred homesickness. A divine restlessness. A longing not for escapism, but for return. Your spirit isn't deteriorating, it's maturing. You're outgrowing shallowness, and heaven is becoming your appetite. Psychologists speak of existential longing, a deep awareness that life must hold more than what we can touch or explain. But for the chosen ones, it's not just theory, it's experience, it's cellular, it's in your breath. You've glimpsed eternity's color, and now the world feels grayscale. Your eyes have adjusted to glory, and now the lights of this world feel dim in comparison. And when heaven starts to feel like home, it changes the way you move here. Your decisions, your posture, your preferences, everything starts to shift. You no longer live for moments. You live from mission. Have you noticed how your spiritual hunger intensifies even while your social circles shrink? How the more you feel aligned with God, the less tolerance you have for superficiality. Take Saint Teresa of Avila's words. The closer one approaches to God, the simpler one becomes. This isn't regression, it's refinement. Complexity falls away, crowds thin out. Even laughter starts carrying layers of lament. You begin to discern what others deny. You begin to grieve what others glorify. It's not depression, it's discernment. It's the price of being awake. You're learning to live between two worlds, and your appetite is adjusting to food that only heaven can prepare. And while some around you chase relevance, you crave reverence. While they build platforms, you're building altars. While they curate presence, you're cultivating presence. There is a quiet authority forming in you, a gravitational pull that doesn't draw attention to you, but draws others toward the spirit that's hosting you. Take the story of Father Thomas, a contemplative monk who lived in the Swiss Alps. He spent 40 years in silence and prayer. No social media, no followers, but world leaders quietly made pilgrimages to him for guidance. His walk with God wasn't loud, but it was legendary. He was not branded, but he was branded by heaven. His death wasn't mourned with drama, but the moment he passed, many in the village reported hearing bells ringing with no one pulling the ropes. Some things are unexplainable on earth because they're echoes from heaven. For here we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for the city that is to come. Hebrews 13:14. And then there's the other side, those who mock what they cannot understand. One prominent example is Aleister Crowley, the self-proclaimed occultist and great beast of the early 20th century. He openly defied spiritual truths, mocked scripture, and encouraged indulgence over integrity. His end? Isolated, paranoid, addicted, and consumed by darkness. His fame never saved him. His influence never comforted him. Earth celebrated him, but eternity recoiled. What looks like power in the temporal realm often collapses in the weight of eternal consequence. You, on the other hand, carry something weightless, yet immeasurable. You walk like a whisper through rooms, yet the spirit realm makes way when you enter. Why? Because heaven is building a sanctuary inside you. God is not just visiting. You are becoming a dwelling place. Your body is becoming a tabernacle. Your soul, a tuning fork. You are not just preparing for glory. You are already housing it. A woman named Elira worked as a midwife in a remote region for decades. She delivered over 4,000 babies, many of whom grew up never knowing her name. But she prayed over each child she held. She never asked to be remembered, she asked to be useful. And when she passed away, a rainbow arched over her cabin for 3 hours. Local elders said they'd never seen anything like it. Earth didn't notice, but heaven threw a celebration. Because the walk that goes unseen by man often gets the loudest welcome in glory. What if the transformation you're experiencing now is actually the preparation for a realm your feet have not yet touched? What if the tension you feel isn't punishment, but propulsion? What if the longing is actually an internal GPS redirecting you to where you were always meant to be? What is happening in your life may confuse those who need external metrics. But you aren't building a resume, you're building resonance. Your soul is anchoring in eternity. Your decisions are being filtered through a lens no algorithm can calculate. Your discernment is not a flaw, it's evidence that your frequency is shifting. And yes, it will feel lonely, but so does every summit. Air is thinner where few dare to climb. A caterpillar doesn't mourn its cocoon. It submits to the stillness. It embraces the dark. It dies to the form it knew. And when the wings form, flight becomes inevitable. That's your process. Stillness is not stagnation. It's preparation. You're not disappearing. You're transforming. The world may not see it, but heaven does. The Spirit does. And the atmosphere around you is already adjusting in recognition. So if people say you've changed, they're right. If they say you're distant, they're correct. If they accuse you of being too deep, don't fight it. Shallow waters never disturbed you anyway. You've tasted living water. You've heard eternity's melody. You've touched frequencies that no human words can articulate. There's a term in astrophysics called event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing can return. That's what's forming around your soul. You are nearing the point where your spiritual gravity bends the very reality around you. You're approaching the edge of where earth ends and glory begins. Our citizenship is in heaven, and we eagerly await a Savior from there, the Lord Jesus Christ. Philippians 3:20. So walk on. Don't resist the quiet. Don't panic when laughter fades into longing. Don't grieve what you're shedding. Celebrate what you're hosting. When heaven starts to feel like home, you don't need to be afraid of being taken. You understand it's not an ending, it's a reunion. You're not being pulled away, you're being welcomed back. You're not being erased, you're being remembered. Keep walking, chosen one. You are closer than you've ever been. Every tear has been counted, every whisper recorded, every step an act of worship. And one day, like Enoch, it will happen. A shift, a silence, a supernatural transition. You won't die, you'll be taken. And it will not be punishment. It will be proof that heaven remembers those who walk faithfully. So, walk on, chosen one. Walk on. You're walking home. You weren't sent here to settle. You were deployed with purpose. From the moment your spirit was released into this realm, you carried orders that didn't come from culture. They came from the King. Heaven didn't send you here to blend in. You were sent to shift atmospheres, disrupt patterns, and illuminate what darkness thought it had concealed. That's why you've never felt fully at home in the places others build roots. Because you were never meant to root yourself in fading soil. You were meant to release seeds of eternity. Your feet may touch the ground, but your blueprints were drawn in heaven. You've tried to convince yourself at times that you could stay where it felt safe, where the applause was loudest, where the patterns were predictable. But each time, something within you started to wither. Why? Because safety is not the same as sanctification, and applause is not the same as assignment. You were not made for stagnancy. You were designed for divine movement. That's why certain environments began to feel too tight, why once comfortable routines began to feel like cages, why relationships you once clung to began to feel like distractions. What you didn't realize at first was this: your discomfort wasn't a failure, it was a frequency shift. You were being tuned to something eternal, and the more you tune in, the less this world fits you. Have you ever noticed how the louder the world gets, the quieter your soul becomes? This is not an accident, it's alignment. You weren't created to attach, you were commissioned to act. And like Enoch, your mission was never about permanence in this realm. It was about obedience to a realm that never fades. While others labor to be remembered by history, you are called to be recognized by eternity. The resonance of your life is not measured in followers or fame, but in frequency, heaven's frequency. Enoch didn't spend his days chasing the validation of men. He didn't waste energy trying to turn dirt into divinity. Instead, he focused his whole being on one thing: walking with God. And in that sacred rhythm, eternity began to respond. His disappearance was not disappearance at all. It was divine convergence. Earth didn't lose him. Heaven fulfilled him. So what about you, chosen one? Are you anchoring your sense of identity to things God only meant to pass through? Have you settled in territories that were supposed to be temporary? You were not sent here to build castles in the sand. You were sent to plant eternity in the hearts of men. You weren't commissioned to build empires that crumble. You were called to carry light that multiplies. His story reminds you, you weren't sent here to collect applause. You were sent here to release light. And once that realization saturates your soul, everything changes. Your posture shifts. You no longer cry over closed doors. You discern them as divine boundaries. You stop idolizing invitations from man and start interceding for instructions from God. You lose interest in being seen and grow hungry to be sent. Why does your spirit push back against the very things others seem addicted to? Because you weren't called to conform, you were called to consecrate. You weren't wired for popularity, you were built for purity. You weren't called to fit in, you were chosen to infiltrate. That's why shallow conversations exhaust you. That's why pointless cycles drain you. That's why what once thrilled you now feels like a distraction. God has set your spirit apart. This is why that fire inside you won't let you settle. It's why your prayers are deeper, your worship weightier, your silence is longer. Your consecration is not a punishment, it's a promotion. Ask yourself honestly, have I confused comfort with calling? There's a world that shouts, build your brand, but the Spirit still whispers, build the altar. And altars are not pretty, they're not marketable, they're not glamorous, but they are sacred. They hold fire, blood, surrender, and divine exchange. And when you live from that place, every movement becomes holy. You no longer beg for relevance, you move with reverence. Dietrich Bonhoeffer understood this. He left the safety of American comfort to return to Nazi-occupied Germany, not for applause, not for optics, for obedience, and that obedience cost him his life, but it built a legacy that still shifts nations. Now compare that to Joseph Goebbels, a man who sold his soul to illusion. He clung to power that was rotting. He poured his life into a propaganda machine that devoured him from the inside out. His end? A bunker filled with fear, delusion, and death. Why do some ascend while others implode? Because one walked with eternity in view, the other danced with the darkness. And you, chosen one, you were born to walk through this world like fire through dry grass, to carry presence so weighty that demons recognize your name even when people do not. No one serving as a soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs. but rather tries to please his commanding officer. 2 Timothy 2:4. Your movement doesn't always make sense to others, but it doesn't have to. You're not living by their calendar, you're living by his command. You may feel delayed, but you're actually being deployed. The pauses in your life are not setbacks. They are strategic intermissions, divine moments of recalibration where God adjusts your vision before the next elevation. Elijah didn't build platforms, he built altars. He didn't chase fans, he chased fire. And when his mission was complete, heaven didn't whisper retirement. It thundered with glory, a chariot of fire, a whirlwind, a divine transfer. What if your obedience in this obscure season is building chariots in the spirit? The monarch butterfly doesn't migrate for attention. It moves because of internal code, divine programming. No maps, no external approval, just a knowing. And you've felt that too, haven't you? That inner pull to release what once served you. That ache to move towards something you can't yet name. He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. Luke 16:10. What happens if you grip what God already told you to let go of? This is why you're more sensitive now. Why laughter is laced with longing. Why busyness makes your soul tired. Because God is shielding your sensitivity. He's tuning your antenna. You're not distant, you're dialed in. So don't be shaken when they say, "You've changed." Yes, you have. You're not chasing platforms, you're hosting presence. You're not curating a lifestyle, you're consecrating a life. The excess is being trimmed. The noise is being silenced. The furniture is being cleared from the battlefield. Why would a soldier decorate a foxhole? This isn't a season for decorating. It's a season for discerning. This is why your joy is quieter, but heavier. Why your tears come quicker, but with purpose. Why your solitude is sacred, not sad. You're no longer moved by applause. You're anchored by assignment. And when the time is right, not when man celebrates, but when heaven confirms, you will be taken higher. That could mean spiritual elevation. That could mean a geographic shift. Or it could mean a final homecoming. Whatever it is, it will not be random, it will be righteous. So stay light. Don't attach your destiny to a job title. Don't chain your identity to someone's opinion. Don't marry what God only meant to mentor you. You were not built to settle, you were born to release. You weren't called to blend in. You were chosen to stand out. Your legacy will not be measured in what you acquired, but in what you allowed God to release through you. And when the day comes, when the final step is taken and the last yes has been whispered, God will turn the page himself, just like he did for Enoch, and the story will not end. It will just begin again, in glory. You may feel buried, but you're actually being built. What feels like a grave may, in fact, be a greenhouse. The darkness around you is not death, it's design. You've mistaken the silence for absence, but heaven has never stopped speaking. The pressure you feel is not punishment, it's precision. Because when God is building something eternal, he doesn't rush it, and he certainly doesn't broadcast it. He buries it deep, surrounds it in mystery, and lets it grow where no one else can touch it. Enoch didn't wear a crown, write a psalm, or lead a nation. He never stood on a mountain like Moses, never called fire from heaven like Elijah. His name was not lifted on banners, nor did he speak to thousands. But his legacy reaches into eternity. Why? Because God hides those he trusts the most. He doesn't parade his most potent weapons, he prepares them. Not all glory is public, not all impact is loud. Some of heaven's most powerful voices are formed in complete silence. Have you ever noticed how the most sacred shifts in your life came not with applause, but with tears and quiet surrender? Scripture gives Enoch only a few verses, but those verses carry the weight of entire volumes. His story doesn't shout about signs, wonders, or revival campaigns. It speaks only this: Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him. Genesis 5:24. That was enough. Not because it was flashy, but because it was fully aligned. Not because the world approved, but because heaven affirmed. You too have been walking through territories that no one claps for. You've labored in obscurity, sowed in tears, interceded in rooms with no audience. And still, heaven has recorded every step. You've wrestled with the ache of being unseen. You've whispered prayers no one will ever quote. But what if what you mistook for rejection was actually redirection? What if what you called delay was divine development? What if your hiding wasn't a punishment, but a prophetic positioning? When something is truly valuable, it doesn't live on the surface. Gold is hidden in the earth. Diamonds are forged in darkness. Pearls are birthed in shells, sealed shut by pressure. Even oil, the sacred symbol of God's anointing, must be crushed out of the hidden olive. Could it be that your season of hiding has always been about your holiness? That the low places weren't detours, but divine wombs? Why do you think God kept certain opportunities from you, even when you were so ready to shine? Because heaven knows what we forget. Exposure without preparation destroys what was meant to live. Visibility too soon creates spectacle, not sanctification. Fame without formation builds charisma, but no character. And so God, in His mercy, covers what He's cultivating. He hides what He's healing. Enoch didn't clamor for attention. He didn't rush his assignment. He didn't build a platform. He just walked quietly, consistently, faithfully. And heaven called that pleasing. A violin doesn't sing in symphonies until it has spent months in silence. Its strings must be tuned, its body shaped by skilled hands. If rushed, it cracks under pressure. That's you. You've been under tension, not because you're broken, but because you're being tuned. Not because you're unworthy, but because you're being made worthy to carry the weight of what's coming. Have you ever asked why silence has been your companion for so long? Look to Corrie ten Boom, a quiet Dutch watchmaker's daughter who hid Jewish families during the Holocaust. She wasn't famous when she forgave the Nazis. She wasn't visible when she risked her life to save others. But in the hidden, she burned with unshakable fire. And when God finally revealed her, her story didn't just inspire, it delivered generations. Her years in obscurity weren't wasted, they were sacred. She didn't emerge because of strategy, she was unveiled because of surrender. Now contrast that with cult leader Jim Jones, a man obsessed with his own image, demanding loyalty, rejecting accountability. He filled rooms with noise but carried no weight. His ministry wasn't hidden, it was inflated. And when the storm came, it collapsed under its own deception. He wasn't covered by God. He was exposed by pride. Not all platforms are divine. Some are traps disguised as stages. Why do you think God silenced your name when others were going viral? Because He was guarding you, not from failure, but from contamination. He's been keeping your oil pure, your name off flyers, your voice out of rooms not yet ready for your frequency. He's been wrapping your identity in layers of trust. Because your calling is generational, your anointing is costly, and your presence can't afford to be diluted by noise. You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. Psalm 32, verse 7. There's something profoundly sacred about being unseen. In those hours, you don't perform, you pray. You don't chase, you discern. You don't manipulate outcomes, you cultivate obedience. Every time you've chosen the secret place over the spotlight, every time you've surrendered your timing to His timing, you've been marked. You've asked God, why is my story taking so long? But what if slow is sacred? The sequoia tree, one of Earth's mightiest beings, spends decades rooting deep before ever reaching the sky. Why? Because what's going to carry weight must first carry depth. You are not behind. You are being built for endurance. You are not stuck. You are being structured for legacy. You're not carrying a moment, you're carrying blueprints. What if your maturity isn't just about your breakthrough, but about someone else's? Have you ever heard of Maribel? Most haven't. She was a hospice nurse in São Paulo. For 27 years she worked night shifts, sitting beside the dying. She prayed over them. She sang their favorite hymns. She comforted their families. No social media, no biography. But when she died, people from across nations came to honor her. She never asked to be seen, but heaven saw her. Earth may have missed her name, but heaven shouted it. Enoch wasn't loud, but he was legendary. He heard whispers that thundered in the spirit. He walked in harmony with the divine until the lines between dimensions blurred. And when he matched heaven's rhythm, God didn't delay. He took him, not as an exit, but as a testimony. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. So what if your invisibility isn't punishment, but proof that God trusts you with silence? He hides prophets, intercessors, and kingdom carriers in places where applause can't reach and distractions can't infect. Why? Because what he's building through you can't afford shortcuts. Your message is not microwave. It's marinated. It's been crushed, consecrated, and confirmed. That's why this next move won't come with fanfare. It'll come with fire. Are you grieving the quiet place when it's actually your place of greatest strength? The doors that didn't open were not denials. They were divine shields. The people who walked away weren't losses. They were part of your pruning. The platforms that didn't come weren't withheld. They were postponed until your oil was ready. Chosen one, you are not hidden to be forgotten. You are hidden to be fortified. When God unveils you, it will not be for entertainment. It will be for eternal impact. You won't rise with confusion. You'll rise with clarity. And when that moment arrives, it will not feel like a beginning. It will feel like a continuation of every private yes you whispered in the dark. So if you're still hidden, stay rooted, stay obedient, stay sharp, because the longer God hides you, the louder he plans to use you. You've been disappearing, haven't you? Not physically, but spiritually, quietly, unapologetically, from the noise, the expectations, the artificial validation cycles. You didn't ghost them, you outgrew them. You didn't lose interest, you found higher purpose. And now, much like Enoch, you're no longer walking to be seen. You're walking to be sealed. When Enoch vanished, the Bible offers no parade, no press release, just this: he was not, for God took him. Genesis 5:24. One moment he was among them, the next he was absorbed into glory. No warning, no approval, just a holy extraction. That kind of intimacy can't be scheduled. It can only be cultivated. And when your walk gets that close, when your spirit becomes synchronized with the pulse of heaven, you become harder to track on earthly frequencies. Have you been noticing that even those closest to you no longer understand your rhythm? You've stopped defending your absence. You've stopped explaining your silence. The world reads it as distance, but in the realm of the spirit, it's depth. You're not abandoning connection. You're responding to a higher communion. You don't crave visibility. You crave clarity. Your heart isn't becoming colder. It's becoming consecrated. The world doesn't understand holy withdrawal. Carnal minds can't decode covenant movement. Why aren't you chasing the spotlight? Why aren't you commenting back? Why are your responses fewer, your gaze steadier, your appetite simpler? It's because God is tuning your attention to eternal things. You've been summoned, and the world can't interpret what God hasn't disclosed. The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God. They are discerned only through the Spirit. 1 Corinthians 2:14. Like a submarine disappearing beneath the surface, the deeper you go, the less noise you make. In fact, heaven often cloaks those it calls most deeply. Your life has begun to slide off earthly radars because your assignment has crossed into sacred territory. Is it strange how old pleasures now feel heavy? How what once entertained you now feels spiritually corrosive? You've started slipping out of reach, not out of arrogance, but out of obedience. You've sensed a new gravity pulling you down, not into despair, but into devotion. The same parties now feel hollow. The same gossip drains your energy. The same audiences that once applauded you now feel irrelevant. Why? Because heaven is building in you what the world was never meant to validate. Take Simone Weil, a French philosopher and mystic. She walked away from academic prestige, fame, and recognition to spend her days laboring with poor factory workers. She said, "Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity." Her life became invisible to the world, yet deeply known by heaven. She didn't vanish into irrelevance. She ascended into resonance. Now contrast her with Elizabeth Bathory, the infamous Hungarian countess obsessed with vanity and reputation. Terrified of aging, obsessed with power, she clung to youth in monstrous ways, leading to a legacy of horror. Her hunger for control consumed her. She died hidden. Yes, but hidden in shame, not in sanctification. So what kind of hiding is shaping you right now? A man named Derek, once an ambitious startup CEO, began to feel numb even in success. One day, he sold everything and became a school janitor in a neighborhood he once ignored. For the next 20 years, he prayed over every locker, mentored fatherless kids, and paid secret tuition fees. When asked why, he simply said, "God asked me to walk a hallway no one noticed." And that hallway became holy ground. There's a concept in neuroscience called neural pruning. Your brain eliminates connections it no longer uses, so stronger ones can form. That's what's happening to you. God is severing mental and emotional ties to systems that no longer serve your calling. You're not detached, you're being pruned for power, and yes, you'll confuse some people. They'll ask, "Where have you been?" But the truth is, they're trying to trace a movement that's not on their map. You've been walking with God in places only obedience can lead. You're not less present, you're more positioned. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. Colossians 3:2-3. Don't be surprised when you feel invisible. Don't resist when God calls you to the wilderness. That's where prophets are forged. That's where mantles are measured. That's where assignments are affirmed without applause. Why are you explaining silence to those who don't hear your frequency? Let them wonder. Let them speculate. When the time is right, when God pulls back the veil, when the full blueprint unfolds, they'll remember your disappearing act. They'll ask how you knew, where you went, why you shifted. And your answer will be simple. I was walking. Walking with a voice they didn't hear. Walking into timing they couldn't interpret. Walking away from shadows toward unshakable light. So stop apologizing. Stop justifying. You are not running. You're rising. You are not disappearing into obscurity. You're being hidden into holiness. Chosen one, your retreat is not your resignation. It is your recalibration. Your vanishing is not weakness. It is warfare. Your silence is not absence. It is strategy. You're not done. You're being deployed. And when the time comes, when God unwraps what He's been shaping in solitude, it won't be for attention. It will be for impact. Until then, let the distance speak louder than any defense. Walk on, and let the world wonder where you went. You didn't miss your moment. Your exit is being orchestrated. Enoch didn't disappear by accident. He wasn't snatched prematurely. His exit wasn't random. It was a divine strategy executed with supernatural precision. He was not for God took him. Genesis 5:24. No alarms, no applause, no press release, just pure alignment. His assignment concluded, and so did his earthly tenure. And now, chosen one, you are being drawn into that same cadence. Have you noticed that certain doors are closing, not because you're failing, but because you've fulfilled? You sense it. The air is changing. The invitations are different. The rooms you once fought to enter now feel foreign. Conversations that used to light your fire now feel like noise. God isn't punishing you. He's promoting you. But promotion in the kingdom often feels like subtraction before multiplication. This is what happens when your timeline shifts from natural to supernatural, when you stop tracking success by metrics and start discerning progress by movement in the Spirit. This is what alignment feels like. It's not always loud, but it is always unmistakable. You are not being evicted, you are being escorted. Your exit is not chaos, it is choreography. God is closing access to what once held your focus, not to deprive you, but to deliver you. Every holy ending is an echo of a new beginning. But here's the thing, the world often labels your exit as failure because they weren't in the room when God issued your release. So why are you still waiting for people to understand what heaven has already approved? When God determines your departure, whether from a role, a relationship, a city, or even a lifetime, He doesn't ask for human permission. He moves, and when He moves, He doesn't explain, because revelation is for the obedient, not the opinionated. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delighteth in His way. Psalm 37:23. And when your steps are ordered, so are your stops, so are your shifts, so are your exits. Enoch didn't broadcast a farewell tour. He didn't host a Going Higher live stream. He simply walked until walking with God became walking into God. And when heaven said, "Enough has been fulfilled," he transitioned without struggle. Chosen one, you're entering that realm now, not necessarily through death, but through divine redirection, through holy closures, through endings that don't need applause to be anointed. The people around you may not comprehend your shift, but they don't carry your spirit. They haven't walked your steps. They don't hear the whisper you're obeying. Why are you afraid of leaving what no longer feeds you? In nature, the most essential shifts happen without sound. A glacier splits under tension. A seed breaks open beneath soil. A caterpillar dies in darkness before rising with wings. And you are in metamorphosis. Your spirit is not dying, it's molting, shedding timelines, identities, relationships, and atmospheres that were only meant to get you this far. You are not breaking down, you are breaking through. God has been weaning you off of attention-based value systems. He's detoxing you from applause addiction. He's severing soul ties with old seasons so you can enter new realms clean. You may feel like you're losing traction, but you're actually gaining revelation. There is weight in your walk now. Heaven is trusting you with strategic silence. And yes, people will misunderstand it. They'll call you distant, detached, too deep, but they didn't hear the whisper that changed your direction. They didn't see the vision God gave you in the secret place. Have you noticed how few people ask about your assignment, but many question your exit? You're not obligated to answer them. Some shifts are sacred. Some blueprints are confidential until construction is complete. The world wants access to your purpose without surrendering to your process. Take Dr. Miles Monroe. For years he spoke prophetically about completing one's assignment and dying empty. When he passed suddenly in 2014, it stunned the public, but not those who listened to him closely. He had prepared for that moment spiritually. His exit was not random, it was right on schedule. Now contrast that with Jeffrey Epstein, a man who built his life on deception, manipulation, and perversion. His exit was shrouded in scandal, confusion, and spiritual darkness. He tried to control every outcome, but couldn't escape divine consequence. Fame cannot protect what is misaligned with God. The difference? One man's departure was strategy, the other's was collapse. And then there's Mrs. Harlan, a retired schoolteacher from Detroit, quiet, unknown, faithful. She mentored teen mothers, paid for groceries without telling anyone, and prayed over students by name. When she passed, over 400 people showed up at her memorial. She left no public platform, but she exited with eternal impact. So I ask you, what kind of exit are you preparing for? There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to keep and a time to throw away. Ecclesiastes 3:1-6. Some of you are not leaving failure, you're leaving fulfillment. You are not quitting, you are concluding. You're not confused, you're being called higher. God is rerouting you into assignments that require all of you, purified, processed, and fully present. That's why distractions are being severed, why certain spaces feel stale, why even some connections you loved now feel spiritually incompatible. So why are you shrinking your obedience to preserve someone else's comfort? Like a spacecraft detaching from its launch pad, your separation is essential for elevation. What helped you rise may not be able to travel with you where you're going. You must be willing to let go of the booster to reach orbit. In astrophysics, this principle is called staging. Without it, the rocket can't reach the next atmosphere. The extra weight becomes drag. Similarly, every spiritual stage requires a new shedding. That's why you feel heavy when you ignore heaven's prompt to release. And it's why your silence is strategic. Every time you obey God without broadcasting it, every time you leave a room without explaining, every time you close a door without a dramatic speech, you multiply your authority in the unseen realm. Even your absence begins to carry prophetic weight. Your transitions will preach louder than your platforms. So stop asking for confirmation when God has already given you clearance. You don't need to announce what heaven is already accelerating. The same God who called Enoch into glory is now calling you into divine repositioning. You're not fading, you're focusing. You're not vanishing, you're vibrating at a higher frequency, and those not tuned in will say you disappeared. Let them. They'll say, "Why did you leave? What happened to them? They used to be so involved." And your answer won't need to be lengthy. Just this: I was walking, and God shifted my path. Have you ever noticed that the deeper your alignment grows, the less your calendar belongs to people? You don't move by pressure anymore. You move by presence. Your yes is sacred. Your time is tithed. Your attention is costly. You don't live for appointments. You live by assignment. This next exit, it's not about leaving people behind. It's about walking forward into places they're not equipped to follow. And that's not arrogance. It's accuracy. Chosen one, some exits are spiritual tectonic shifts. They rearrange your inner geography. They shake everything familiar. But afterward, they reveal new land, new vision, new inheritance. So why are you resisting what's trying to release you? The enemy would love for you to fear transition. He wants you to mourn what was meant to graduate you. But he can't stop what heaven has already signed. He can try to delay it. He can try to confuse it. But divine timing is not managed by demons. It's managed by decree. You are on the verge of release, into new territories, into fresh authority, into hidden mandates that have been waiting for your obedience to mature. And when it happens, it won't feel like a break. It will feel like a breaking open. So, don't be afraid when your schedule clears, when your inbox dries up, when invitations slow down. That's not rejection, that's reservation for a realm where heaven is your host. You are not leaving because it fell apart. You are leaving because God finished building it through you. So let the people speculate. Let the rooms adjust to your absence. Let the noise quiet. You're not ghosting. You're going. You're not exiting to escape. You're exiting because the cloud is moving and your spirit is following. Your exit is not man's decision, it's heaven's design. And when the assignment is done, when every line of your spiritual blueprint has been lived, not just read, then and only then the elevation will manifest. So walk on, quietly, boldly, obediently, and let your exit prophesy. There's something sacred about a steady walk. Not sprinting, not striving, not performing, just walking, faithfully, quietly, intentionally, with your eyes fixed on the one who sees in secret. That's what Enoch mastered, and that's what you, chosen one, are being summoned into. He didn't rush toward legacy. He didn't chase visibility. He didn't demand recognition. He simply walked, and that walk became a womb for something supernatural. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him. Genesis 5:24. No death, no delay, no drama, just divine transition. And that is your blueprint. Have you ever felt like you were walking through life unnoticed? That no one sees the sacrifice, no one hears the prayers, no one applauds the purity, that your journey feels too slow, too obscure, too ordinary to mean something cosmic. But heaven sees it differently. You see, in the realm of eternity, obedience creates echoes, and with every quiet step you take in the right direction, your spirit is gaining velocity, even if the world calls it stillness. Enoch's walk wasn't random, it was rhythm, a steady cadence of intimacy that gradually aligned him so fully with the realm of the spirit that earth could no longer contain him. That's what this is about, not a destination, but a transformation. You don't walk for the sake of motion, you walk for the sake of becoming. So why do you keep measuring progress by what you see, when what matters most is what you're becoming? Even when it feels like nothing's moving on the outside, everything could be shifting on the inside. God isn't watching your pace, He's watching your posture, your heart, your motives, the purity of your surrender. And while the world teaches you to run for results, heaven invites you to walk for relationship. Every yes to God in private is creating momentum in the spirit. Every no to temptation, every act of forgiveness, every time you choose to believe when it would be easier to give up, you are walking, and your walk is counting more than you know. Have you ever considered that the path you're on is already shifting nations, even if no one's seen the first ripple yet? Sometimes the weight of your legacy isn't felt until after you're gone, but that doesn't mean it isn't building right now. Heaven builds backward. The outcome may manifest later, but the authority is being deposited now. Take Henrietta Lacks, an African-American woman whose cancer cells were taken without consent in the 1950s. She never walked a platform, never preached a sermon, but her cells, known as the Heller line, became the foundation for countless scientific breakthroughs, vaccines, cloning, genetics. She didn't live to see her impact, but her walk, her lived experience, became an anchor for generations. That's legacy, that's transfer. And that is what your walk is setting in motion. You were never called to impress the world. You were called to please God. And when your walk pleases Him, a holy countdown begins. The countdown is not based on metrics or milestones. It's not based on whether people clap. It's based on when the alignment reaches a frequency so holy, so precise, that God says, "Now is the time." They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Isaiah 40:31. So walk until the weariness lifts. Walk until the weight becomes wings. Walk until what felt like delay begins to look like design. This walk is not a career plan. It's a covenant path. It's how God develops your authority, not just your assignment. And the longer you walk, the more heaven presses into you what earth can't teach. Some days it will feel thankless. Other days you'll want to give up. But walk anyway. Have you ever wondered why you're still standing after everything? because there's something inside you that refuses to stop. That's not personality. That's divine breath. That's spiritual stubbornness. That's the evidence that your spirit is from another realm. Like a tectonic plate shifting deep beneath the crust of the earth, your consistency is building pressure, and eventually there will be a break, an opening, a release, a transfer, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. The world may not see the shift coming, but you will sense it before it appears. You'll notice a sudden lightness in the spirit, a soft whisper in the atmosphere, an unexpected calm in your soul, and then, without announcement, heaven will call you up. Your reward won't be a stage, it will be a seal. A supernatural validation that your private faithfulness has reached its divine conclusion. Not all transfer looks like death. Some of it looks like elevation, some of it looks like reappointment, and some of it, like Enoch's, looks like complete departure from one realm into another. Jacqueline, a former social worker in New Zealand, used to spend her days counseling at-risk teens. No one saw her stay up late, writing personalized letters to every one of her clients when they left the system. She prayed over each one. Years later, one of those teens, now a government leader, sought her out and said, "I'm leading with your words in my heart." She never sought platform, but her walk was prophetic, and her influence will outlive her. Have you ever asked what seeds your walk is planting that you may never live to harvest? Now compare that with Charles Ponzi, a man obsessed with fast legacy, fame, control. His financial schemes made headlines, but his fall was just as dramatic. He walked for attention, not assignment, and when the weight of exposure hit, he collapsed under a kingdom of lies. That's why God invites you into the long walk, not the loud walk, not the instant walk, the eternal one. You're walking not just for impact, but for intimacy. You don't need to rush, you just need to remain. When your walk is real, your transition is automatic. So why are you trying to manifest what only heaven can release? This isn't about manifestation, it's about maturity. You're not here to manipulate destiny, you're here to embody it. And when the fullness of time arrives, you won't need to announce it. Heaven will mark it, and earth will respond. The walk is forming your spiritual lungs, so you can breathe in new altitudes without suffocating. It's strengthening your spiritual joints, so you can carry the weight of glory without buckling. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. That's why the walk can't stop now. Not when you're this close. Walk until the cycles break. Walk until your prayers become prophecies fulfilled. Walk until your children feel the fire you left behind. Walk until the scroll in heaven flips to the next chapter and God says, "Now." Your walk is building a sound in heaven, a vibration that hell can't replicate, a frequency that only heaven recognizes. So when you feel unseen, misunderstood, misinterpreted, walk anyway. When people ask where you've been and why you've changed, walk anyway. When doors close and friends disappear and invitations vanish, walk anyway. Because the walk isn't for them, it's for Him. This isn't just about where you're going, it's about who you're becoming along the way. God isn't impressed by how far you go. He's drawn to how deep you're willing to walk. And when the time comes, like Enoch, you won't need a funeral to mark your exit. You'll need only one word from heaven. Come. Come because you finished it. Come because you kept the flame burning. Come because you stayed on the path when everyone else turned back. Come because your walk has made room for your transformation. You didn't sprint. You didn't perform. You didn't build towers of pride. You walked. And that walk, measured in moments of obedience, silence, sacrifice, prayer, pain, and purity, has been tracking heaven's timeline. So don't quit in this final stretch. The scrolls are almost unsealed. The mantle is almost released. The shift is almost here. Walk until the transfer happens. And when it does, you won't just exit, you'll be exalted. So remember this, chosen one. You were not called to fade, you were called to ascend. You weren't designed to merely survive the chaos of this world. You were formed to walk so closely with God that even death itself cannot interrupt the conversation between your soul and heaven. Like Enoch, your story is not one that ends in a grave. It's a story of transcendence, of being taken, not just in the future, but even now. From fear into faith, from noise into knowing, from survival into surrender. Every step you take with God is a step away from limitation and a step toward divine elevation. You are walking toward something eternal, something sacred, and one day, when the time is right, you won't die. You'll be taken. And if this message spoke to the deepest places in your soul, if it reminded you of who you really are, I invite you now. Comment 777 as a public declaration that you're walking with heaven, not the world. That your eyes are on eternity, not just survival. To everyone who's been supporting this channel, whether through a simple like, a comment, a share, or a generous super thanks, please know this. Your support isn't just seen, it's felt deeply. It's what keeps this sacred space alive for those who are still searching for light in the dark. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, turn on the bell so you never miss a moment of divine revelation, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that their walk matters more than their resume. And now, may the God who walked with Enoch walk with you. May every step you take be saturated with favor, with fire, and with clarity. May angels accompany you. May the heavens back you, and may your path shine brighter until the day you're taken. Not just from this earth, but into glory, legacy, and divine fulfillment. You are not behind. You are on schedule. You are not forgotten. You are handpicked. And your walk is not wasted. It's witnessed by heaven itself. Bless you, beloved. You're walking toward the eternal. Don't stop now.